always good to start with a laugh. We've got to get ready. It's been a while since we've done one of these podcasts. We're probably going to run this one a bit shorter than usual, just to get our toes back in the cold water again, wading in till we get that tingle that most blokes get.
Mate,
I can't speak for women.
that's a bad idea. You jump in and just get it over and done with. Fully submerged, no messing around. None of this like, oh, I'm just gonna do a little wade in, shins in, knees in. No, you dive in, stick your head under.
I can't disagree with you, but equally
What would Ross Edgley
tiptoe.
say? What would Ross Edgley say?
Yeah, it's true. I don't know. He won't speak to us.
No,
that sounds like we've even reached out. We haven't. He might speak to us. Who knows?
You could do.
So before we ramble on too much and procrastinate, as we've identified, that's one of our weaknesses. So today we're going to talk about Gestalt theory.
Gestalt.
James, you're on an interesting journey at the minute. So you're doing your psychology qualification, and this was one of the topics you were studying for, or you put the words up for me. What were you doing?
So start of January, I decided to follow my own. Sort of follow what I tell other people to do, which is part of our bearings, isn't it? Which is evolve. And one of the things I'm certainly interested in is I'm interested in how people make decisions and why they make those decisions, what influences that. So psychology has always been of interest to me, even before I knew really what it was. So I just wanted to formalize it a bit more. So I just did it. Instead of procrastinating, I did jump in. I didn't tiptoe in. I just went sign up to it. So I'm doing it with Uxbridge, and it's unit based. So you complete unit and you do assignments. And the current assignment I'm working on is perception, and Gestalt theory is part of that. So I was writing an assignment for it, and then as you do when you start, that's why it's so important to evolve and learn new things. You then start seeing how it feeds into the current things you're doing, and also supplements, supports, or makes that more whole, if that makes sense. And so that's when I put that post up on LinkedIn about Gestalt theory and seeing the whole. And finally, I did a post that met your approval. And you're like, that's quite interesting. Do you want to talk about that? And I was like, yeah, we haven't done this in a while. So it was a good idea, mate, that you came up with to have a chat about it. So
cool. So
if you've got questions about it, bud, fire away and we can discuss it.
I'm sure some will come through this. So before we go into it, then, from my limited knowledge, what's my background telling you?
What is your background telling you?
As in my background today. What's that telling you?
seeing the whole. Well,
yeah.
Okay, we're going to talk about this. We'll break it down. But I see a child's bedroom.
Maybe it's my bedroom.
Yeah.
It's not. It's the kid's bedroom.
I wouldn't put it past you.
Could you imagine, Bev, if I put stickers all over the walls and had bunk beds? There's certainly more room for activities.
Step Brothers is her favourite film, though, so it's like you'd just be living her dream. You're like, you wanted
maybe. Maybe. That's what I try and convince her, but no. Then we've got kids and have bunk beds, and she hates this room. So, yeah. So, Gestalt theory, then. What is
Gestalt? Right, Gestalt theory is a school of psychology. And what it focuses on really is that people will naturally organise what they see, hear and feel into wholes. When I say holes, I don't mean a hole like a hole in the ground. I mean WHOLE. They see the whole, all right?
They make the whole picture up.
Rather than the disconnected parts. And it's, without going into the history, because it would just take too long, it was started in the 1900s by German psychologists. And Gestalt in German means shape or form.
Okay.
Gestalt.
I would have guessed that Gestalt was a person. So there we go.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, Gestalt means shape or form, if it's translated into English. So as in the early 1900s and the 1900s in general, you had like the European schools of psychology, which were like Austrian, Hungarian, German in nature, and then you had the Americans. So the Germans and the Americans were at it way before the First and Second World War, but on the battlefield of psychology. But yeah, does that answer your question? So when we see
Yes.
things, we will naturally organize them into meaningful wholes and disconnected parts. So where you said, what do you see in my background? I instantly went, child's bedroom, because I'm seeing it. I'm seeing the whole. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not. When you break it down and bring in the other parts to it, that forms the whole picture. But I don't see that. Like, for example, like if I was to show you this, what's the first thing you see?
Circle.
Okay, it's a circle. But if you break it down, it's in the shape of a circle. Is interconnect. It's dots that are not interconnected. For it to be a fully formed circle, I'd need to draw a line in, wouldn't I? So now it's a circle. But because you've been wired and conditioned to see that shape, any shape like that, you just go circle.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what your brain does. So the idea really, if the core idea behind it, if you're going to break it or summarize in a sentence, is the whole is greater than the sum of all parts. That's the theory. Up until that point, it was very much we interconnect all the little parts first, and then we see the whole. But Gestalt theory was like, no, we see the whole first, and then later on, if we're intuitive or we decide to, we actually break down the interconnected parts. Does that make sense?
Which is like when just going with the thing of being in a kid's room, when you're a kid and you suddenly, or maybe even an adult, but you see like it's dark, a little bit of light comes through, and it looks like someone's sat on the end of the bed like a gremlin or something, but actually you turn the light on and you go, no, that's just some clothes of falling in a funny pattern or been stacked in a different way that our brains go, danger, there's something trying to eat me.
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
Does that? Well, my next question is, why was it useful, or why is it?
Yeah,
useful?
I mean, it's still useful today. But you know how I call us armchair evolutionary psychologists, myself and you. We're very interested, very interested in how we evolved to this point, and survival is a big part of what we talk about. And again, funny enough, this plays another thing that plays into it. So, you know, the example you just said of sitting in a room, looking at the end of your bed with a certain amount of light, and you start to see the shape of something.
Yep.
Again, it's this part of us. Gestalt theory could be used to explain some of our survival instinct. So as you said, like you're in the wild and you see what you think in the bushes is the shape of a predator, your brain instinctively just quickly goes, that's a bear. Just off the show. Don't say that. Right. Edit that out. Edit that is getting edited out. You know, you see a predator, right? And your brain, you see what you think is the shape of, and then you fill in the rest because your brain is trying to make a quick decision to save you. So does that make sense? It's filling in the gaps. And then there's other parts to it, like outside the actual survival instinct side of things. It's also your brain, as we know, or our brains crave familiarity and routines, right? Because your brain understands it. Then does that make sense?
Yeah,
so
we like to be able to predict things. Yeah.
Yeah. So for example, like again, here's another little rubbish drawing. What's that?
Pac-Man.
Yeah. Okay. But Pac-Man actually is usually yellow and has an eye.
Yeah.
But through your childhood, playing the game and whatever it is you did, watching cartoons and stuff, as soon as you see a circle shape with a wedge cut out, your brain just goes Pac-Man, because your brain sees that straight away, and it's like, I want to know what that is.
Draws on memory, right?
It does, yeah. It does. Draws on memory and experience and the things that happen to us. You're a musician, aren't you?
Well, loosely termed, but yeah.
All right. Remember what Robert Rodriguez said the other day? He's like, say what you are. Stop pretending to be it. So when you hear a song, would you agree that you hear the whole tune first, the melody? You don't concentrate the individual notes until you start to dissect them.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, I had to think about what you were saying there. Yeah, absolutely. So I was going 3D then, as in like you hear the opening beat, and then you're like, oh, I can hear the whole
Yeah.
song. But actually, to I suppose in a way as well, even without there being music playing, just listen to Mark Hoppus's book, which is poignant. So Blink-182 is All the Small Things. That starts before any instrument plays. There's this sort of bit that starts to lead the song in. I can hear that second. If it's might even be less than a second. I can hear that and go, oh, All the Small Things is gonna play.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Again,
because your brain is filling in the next gaps, it loves it. It likes patterns. It likes
absolutely
unified experiences.
And actually, to sorry, just to stick with this, there is a drum beat which is at the start of it's a Phil Collins song. Oh man, that's gonna really annoy me. I'm gonna have to fact check myself. I'll put that in the comments afterwards.
In the Air Tonight when you start?
No, it's there's that. There's another old like Motown song that uses it, and what's the band? I said, "Are you gonna be my girl?" Ding 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 ding. I'm sure it's that one.
Yeah.
But there's a start of the beat, and every time that song starts, or one of those songs starts, I go, "Oh, it's gonna be Phil Collins," but no, it's Diana Ross or someone else.
Right, so that's a good example. Your brain is just filling in the patterns because it's playing 4D chess. It's like, I want to know what comes next. That's routine. It craves it. Familiarity. It means it's safe. So, in summary, then, Gestalt theory helps us quickly recognize faces, for example, objects. All right, so we understand what they are quickly. And that can be a good thing, but it can also make us quick assumptions in complex environments and situations. We'll just assume something, which I'm sure we'll come on to in a second, because there's some questions probably around that PDF I put out. And then how you find order in chaos, like survival situations under pressure.
Cool. So does that lead us into then thoughts become stories, stories become mindsets?
Yeah, so I was that's where I'm doing this as an assignment, as a separate thing. I've just brought the PDF off so I can remember what I'd actually written. So I'm doing the assignment. I finished that part of the assignment. There's other pieces to it, other parts of perception. If you find this interesting, we can talk about them in a different episode. But I started thinking about what we do and what Find Your Mindset do and how this applies. So did you say, was the question, thoughts become stories, stories become mindsets?
Yeah, that's the title I've got.
Yeah, 100%. So when we experience something that's challenging, all right, something that is either disturbing us, it isn't routine, it's out of the ordinary, sometimes our minds will fill in the blanks. All right, just like you did there, where you assumed about what's coming next in the song or what song it was. All right, so you fill in the blanks, you jump to conclusions, and you connect dots that aren't really there. All right, so we go from a single thought to telling ourselves a story, and then we tell ourselves it's now a mindset. All right, and we don't even notice we've done it. All right, so I think the example I used in the PDF I put together was, I was talking about how our mind shortcut reality. Okay, and we decide things before they happen. So you get a short email that just says, we need to talk. That's all it is. That's the context of it. But then, as I said, your mind will start to fill in the rest. You'll start to imagine, well, what does that mean? What does that mean? Is it good? Is it bad? What have I done? What haven't I done? And then you start to feel anxious. And then you go into a meeting or you reply in a defensive way. And nothing was said that got you to be defensive, but that pattern played out. All right. You had a single thought, you told yourself a story, and then it affected your mindset going into that meeting. All right. So it's going to, we talk about, we are the sum of how we think, feel, and act. Think, feel, perform, think, feel, choose. You're fucking around with that because you're as we discussed previously, you're unbalanced. You're just making stuff up that you haven't got evidence for. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Which I, as well, just as you're saying that, makes me think of how many times my mum used to go, "You know why I'm talking to you about this," and then you suddenly blurt out everything you did wrong, and then you give up 2 or 3 different things that she didn't even know you did wrong.
Yeah,
um,
that's hilarious. Yeah, that's hilarious.
Excellent. So, next point then. Your mind is a pattern. You can reshape that pattern. What do we mean by this?
Yeah, so
Or your mind, our minds?
our minds, their minds, your mind, my mind. Yeah. What happens essentially is if that is what you do, and you do that repetitively every time that happens, you start telling yourself that story, you are going to build up a pattern, because that is just what your go-to will be every time you're in a situation similar to that. So once that is developed, we have to find a way to break the loop.
Cool.
Okay, and that's I mean, we could talk at blooming nausea how we should be teaching this to kids. Like where we see this, we should be literally helping them not build this into their go-to and do the repetition, so it just becomes normal thought process for them. But what we can do if we have got to the point where we see ourselves doing that is find the pattern and break the loop. All right.
Cool.
So
I'm going to challenge you now. Okay. So I'm interested in what these tools are we're going to provide. How would you teach this to a child? Do you know?
how would I teach this to a child?
Yeah.
It'd be pretty straightforward in a lot of sense. I mean, it would proactively would be more challenging for children, because it's proactive is challenging for adults. It can be done, but it'd be
Yeah.
challenging for a child. Like when you take away something from a child and they think the world's fucking ended, like right, iPad time's over,
Yep.
right? They're not seeing the whole. They're just they're thinking that you're bad,
Mm-hmm.
and you've taken it away from them to upset them, to anger them, right?
Experienced that this morning. Yep.
Yeah, okay, right. So you know what it is. So we have to speak to them as if we were speaking to ourselves in this situation, which is okay. They've gone. You've taken the iPad off me. It's the end of my world. I was really enjoying that. We got to help them see the bigger picture,
Okay.
right? And explain to them why we're taking them away, because it is for the greater good. It's not good for them. Now, obviously, as children get older, the methods of that are going to change, because taking it away from a 3-year-old is very different than taking it away
Yeah.
from a 10-year-old, because you've got more reasoning in that sense.
Yeah. Absolutely. They've got more
So
experience, so
yeah,
they can more frame of reference.
but yeah, it's a very good challenge. Thank you for bringing it up. I'd have to, if I'm completely honest with you, I'll do what I practice, what I preach. I'm not going to bullshit you. I'd have to give it some more serious thought.
No, that's fair enough.
Certainly know how to do it. I'd certainly know how to help adults that were more aware.
How would you implement it to an adult? So the reason I ask, and yeah, dick move, I put you on the spot there, but
Nah, it's fine.
when I did my kids coaching certificates, I was like, this is genius. I can teach this to adults better. You just got to change some of the terminology to be less patronising. But actually, you treat adults a little bit like children and go, right, this is how you're going to learn it. And suddenly they go, the message goes across a lot more simpler or a lot more simple rather than using overcomplicated terminology, which is often what happens with coaching adults is people throw science words at them. People go, I don't understand Latin.
Yeah.
So yeah, dick move on my part, but I just was curious
No.
if you had an idea. But how would you? So I've derailed us a bit there, but going back to tools then to find the pattern, break the loop.
All right, so to shift us from going into autopilot to awareness, so from going straight into defensive or catastrophizing, it's just 3 steps. So first off, you spot the thought. Right, so you get a short email saying we need to talk, right? Before you let your mind fill in the rest, catch yourself doing it. All right, catch yourself from thinking, or acknowledge that you're thinking about what that could mean. All right, so we need to talk. As soon as you feel yourself going, "Oh, this is bad," associate a feeling with it. So the second step is naming the feeling. All right, so how does that make you feel? Is it making you feel nervous? Is it making you feel anxious? All right, and before you do anything, balance your thoughts and feelings before you choose your actions.
Cool.
All right, so you're looking for evidence of that thought. Then it's going to help you manage or regulate your feelings, and it's going to influence the way you act. All right, so if I just let the whole thing run its course, I get the email, we need to talk. I don't spot that thought. I just let myself feel like shit. It's going to make me act unbalanced or not, or select an action or what I do next that isn't as balanced as it could be. So instead of going, we need to talk, and I just go into autopilot, I go, all right, we need to talk. What could that mean? Right, what does that mean? And how does that make me feel? Okay, it does make me feel nervous, makes me feel a bit anxious. What can I do to make me feel better about it? Maybe I could just call them. Maybe I could just give them a call and just go, hi, how's it going, Tim? I saw the email. It just had three words. It just had that sentence, we need to talk. I'm just checking everything's all right. I'm just because
rip the band-aid off.
Just ask the question, and then you know straight from the horse's mouth what's actually going on.
Well, that almost leads us into to another topic which we can cover another time. But bravery, right? The amount of times, and I've been there a lot in the past, and still, I think it's part of us to sometimes, or not everyone, but certainly with me as a default, sometimes to bury the head in the sand. It'll be all right. I'll cross that bridge when I get to it. And actually, just the one thing I've learned and pushed myself to do is to when I say challenge, not fight or flight, cornered animal, lash out, but as you say, cool. What's the conversation about? What do we need to talk about? Or phone call, email. Another thing I do as well, which we do a lot, is we do ask ourselves internally the feelings. We don't necessarily verbalise them out loud, but we have quite a good support network. I'll phone you, or I'll phone Rich, or vice versa, or we'll have a three-way call, and we'll break it down and discuss it, so we can go, what could this mean? The dangers of that are, though, I guess, is you might not spot the pattern, for example, and not help me with that, and we could end up becoming a ball of catastrophe. So I guess it's having that logical, structured approach to a thought process, which doesn't feel very natural, which is maybe where people struggle with it. Is that fair to say?
It's probably because we've been conditioned to just fucking get on with stuff. Just get on with it. And because of that, it doesn't leave a lot of room for introspective thought. Look, remember, we've gone from the first iPhone in 2007 to now we literally use them for everything. There was no handbook for that. There was no guidebook for that. No one said, oh, by the way, if you get an email on your phone at 10 o'clock at night that says we need to talk, there was no book that went with it. Oh, by the way, it probably doesn't mean what you think it means. This is what Gestalt theory is, and your mind is filling in the gaps. This is how you deal with it. We just let people get on with it. That's why it's quite interesting where, you see, like, you've seen adolescents, haven't you?
Yeah.
There's this concentration all the time on our again, it's ridiculous because it was such a big thing. Everybody made their money or their social media clout on speaking for it for about 48 hours, and it went completely dead in the water. Everyone's just shut up and stopped talking about it now. And if I'm completely honest with you, it was a very good, mate, I love Stephen Graham. He is my favourite actor of all time. I thought it was a very well written and very well shot. We've talked about it because we appreciate things like that. That whole one shot set up is fantastic, but it's a drama. It's not based on facts. It's not statistics. It's not research. So how it was used to try and shoehorn conversations in. I knew it wouldn't. I knew it was vacuous because it would move on to the next thing in the 48-hour news cycle. We talk a lot about, how we help kids. We need to start helping adults.
Mm.
Like, some of the worst offenders when it comes to social media use and having these conversations and conflict, etc., are fully grown, fully fledged adults, because they got to a certain point in their life and they just went, I know everything now. I know everything and this works for me and I'm not changing. And it's, that can lead to some issues internally and externally with the people around you as well. So, look, essentially, your mindset isn't fixed. All right. If you look at it like a pattern, you can reshape it. You don't have to believe everything you think. You don't have to obey every feeling that you feel, and you don't have to stay in that loop. So when you see those mental patterns clearly, you can shift them deliberately. And that's what we do. That's what find your mindset is.
Mm.
Steer your thoughts, navigate your feelings, find your mindset. Zoom out, see the full picture, see the whole.
I like that, and I think we can expand with more tools and work that will be coming out in the future to deal with this. So I think we should wrap up there so we don't take up
Nice.
too much of people's day. But that was good. Good to dip our toes back in. As always, understand, adapt, evolve, overcome, and we'll keep moving forward.
Did you learn
And
something, just as a matter of interest? Did you learn anything from that?
yeah, I learnt that Gestalt meant form or shape. Not
And you just
no,
ignore the rest of it.
I know. I did learn a lot from that.
We
Again, it's that
It's good.
evolutionary side. It makes sense to
Cool.
me. And
We're
again,
going. That's nice, man. We're going to put this. I believe what we can do. We'll put this PDF on our website. So if you sign up to our mailing list, you'll be able to access a PDF that talks about this in more detail. And I hope you get your minds thinking. And if you've got any questions after you've signed up for it, get in touch with us.
yeah,
We'll talk
reach out.
about it with you. We'll reach out. We'll talk about it with you more. But yeah, thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Cheers, Brad.
Stay classy, San Diego.
Cool.